Hey dudes and dudettes, here with another Path of Exile video for you. This one's going to be the build guide for the build that I have been using, my Bloodseeker build. I've pretty much completed whatever I need to do on it before I show you all, and I will work through all of this and give you suggestions if you want to increase your DPS, just in case you want to take off some of the tank, because it does take a long time to kill things when it's not reaching 1,000,000 DPS. But you are damn near unkillable to about everything. So let's get right into it. I want to start with the passive tree and the Ascendancy and the powers that you get from the gods, the Pantheon. And then we're going to get to the gear and all the sockets. We're going to make this efficient and quickly explain everything, and then I'm going to link the path of building in the link below, because I'm sure that someone will be able to modify it to be better than I have it. So let's get right to that with the passive trees. So with the passive tree, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to take your life nodes, whatever accuracy that you need to get yourself up, a couple jewel slots to let you replace a bunch of different things or work around resist or whatever have you. So it's pretty much a template for just about a lot of different builds that you could do with Berserker. It just fits this due to the tankiness and everything. There's not any ones that are like super key to the build, other than just life nodes. That's all that's key, and the rest is just your decision if you want to go. I start out and I come down to Warrior's Blood. I go up to Born to fight, and just to get a little bit of damage and mixed with life, I come over here towards Barbarism and come up to Disemboweling. I'll stop right here on the Strength node before I get to late game, and then I start branching out to where I need to go. It's my style of doing things. You can take these early, and I branch to all the paths. I stop right here, I branch over to here, and I do take these just for the speed that you're going to have when you're leveling with ignore all movement penalties from armor. And I come down there through shield, because by that time you'll be using an okay shield, especially if you buy a small time unique one. They're great. You come over here, you get your charging offensive. This way, when you're getting hit, while you're spinning and channeling, you're getting endurance and frenzy charges before you're using the blood rage. There is one important. I must say there is. Yeah, I should say there is one important for comfortability, and that's the 2 mana nodes here and the mana leech. If you do not have mana leech on something, you can bypass this by getting mana leech on anything. But this just makes it more comfortable to use the Cyclone without running out of mana. Iron Reflexes is the one you must take. You get enough evasion on this due to some of your gear like Starconia's or Belly of the Beast if you take this instead of a rare chest, and your World Carver Gauntlets. Those add evasion, but evasion it's not going to be enough to dodge, so you take Iron Reflexes to convert all of them to armor, and trust me, it works out really well for your tankiness. And then you can come all the way up here. Now you can skip these if you don't want the added life, and you can go DPS, but I come in here just for extra DPS on these little things. They don't add much, but that's pretty much the whole passive tree. It's not really anything that can't be modified to your taste with just a little bit of doing. So you can take a look at this. I'm sure some of you have a better idea, and maybe you can save some points somewhere. We're going to go next to the Ascendants. You go Berserker. You need to go Berserker on this, or you're not going to be able to scale the damage and the attack speed. The more attack speed we have, the more we're hitting, and the more we're using that instant leech that comes with Bloodseeker. And you can see here, life leech from hits with this weapon is instant. Now when you're getting very, very high attack speed, you're hitting a lot of times, you get all that back. And that's what keeps you up. If something hits you really big, your life immediately fills because you're hitting so fast and getting all that leech back. First, you're going to take Crave the Slaughter, and you're going to take Rite of Ruin. On your first two labs, just take those. Trust me, I know it seems daunting that you're going to be losing life, but you won't even feel it as much due to your leech. You'll just be burning through things and you won't notice it. And then we go up to Flawless Savagery. It adds a little bit of damage, some crit multi, just fantastic overall skill for damage. And then you head to your Blitz charges for that 40% more attack speed. And the 10% reduced critical strike chance per Blitz charge does not affect you as much as you think. You still get your crits, you still burn through them, but you get that 40% more attack speed to proc that instant leech extremely fast. These, just to explain these real quick to everybody, when you're hitting, you gain rage. It's one of the reasons that we attack so fast, because rage builds up, and you can see down here, per 1% increased attack damage per 1 rage. So you're going to get 50% increased attack damage because your max amount of rage stacks is 50. 1% increased attack speed per 2 rage. So you're going to get 25% attack speed from that. And then 1% increased move speed per 5 rage. You're going to get 10% move speed. Where it comes in handy is Rite of Ruin. Rite of Ruin is going to triple all those buffs. So instead of the normal old 50% attack damage, you're going to get 150% attack damage. It's huge. Very big bump to your damage. 1% increased attack speed to 2 rage. When it's 25%, it turns to 75% attack speed when you're at 50 rage, and you will be getting the 50 rage more often than you'd think. You trust me, you're gonna stack it quick due to a socket in here. I use the rage support, so we get that 1 extra, and then it adds also fizz damage and stuff like that to just help the claws get a little bit of damage up. And then on your movement speed, you're going to get 30% movement speed when you get Rite of Ruin and you get your rage stacks up. And also, if you do not take Calms, though I suggest it, for the not being able to be frozen and stuff, you will be unstunnable if you have 25 rage, which is huge as well. So that's why we go the Ascendance nodes. We don't go this. Can't go this. You're going to take 10% extra damage taken. That's just not good for this build. This is not needed. You have plenty of leech. You're just fine. And Warbringer, you don't need it. Warcries, you'll use those just to taunt, to get some heat off of your friends if you're tanking for them or anything like that, or if you're in a map and you want a little extra damage, or whatever have Warcry you to take. You can take any Warcry you want, and I'll explain that next. The Pantheon, I'm going to show you my choice for Pantheon and my choice for the upgrade to your Pantheon. I go with Soul of Solaris, 6 additional physical damage reduction while there is only 1 nearby enemy, and 20% chance to take 50% less area damage from hits. I do this that way you're not... It'll save you when you get those big AoE hits that some enemies do, whether it be the ones that are corpses flying in the air that look like tar balls, falling on you. That can help. It can save you in some instances. They just do less damage. And the 6 physical damage reduction, you already have amazing physical damage reduction, and this is just more win. So you could technically switch this up, but the reason I go this is for the take no extra damage from critical strikes if you have taken a critical strike recently. Super important. Sorry, I had to cough, so I muted it. Super important because a lot of times when enemies are giving you crap, they start out small, and when they hit you with that first crit, it's usually not a very big monster hit. They usually they only do their monster crits that can one-shot people when it crits, when with a charge up or something like the touch of Todd, and he smashes you. That's going to come in handy because if he critted you recently, you're not going to take any extra damage. It's going to save you a lot, and you want to capture that Eater of Souls as soon as possible, or have someone help you do it in game. Next, we're going to switch to the minor Pantheon God Power, which is Soul of Shikari. I take this because one of the things that bothers people a lot in this is degen on the ground, caustic ground and poison. And with this, 5% reduced chaos damage taken. That helps you with chaos damage because chaos resist is hard to get, and that helps you a little bit. And I know it doesn't seem like much, but it's a lot when you're dealing in such heavy chaos damage. 25% reduced chaos damage over time while on cost of ground is going to save you when you're spinning on a metamorph. You don't engage it correctly, and then you're sitting there spinning in cost of ground. This is gonna help you not die while your Val Cyclone keeps you locked, unless you want to just unequip it. Captured Terror of the Infinite Drifts is to get the immune to poison. Poison is something that can kill just about anybody if it does right. Hesman, if you faced Alhesman, one of the Conquerors, his poison is massive, and his mobs that he spawns in his maps, their poison is massive. This negates that. Before I got this immune to poison, Alhesman could actually hurt this build, and if unlucky, and I did not get on him to leech, he could kill me. After I was immune to poison, his mobs and him a lot less dangerous. I wreck them. Takes you a little while, but you still wreck them. You don't die to the poison that you would normally die to. I suggest those two. You can switch to the ones you like, but I suggest those for the most tank and the most survivability in most situations. So pretty straightforward on that. You saw those. I'm going to switch to the gear. It's a little bit wonky, and I'll show you why. First, the only thing you really need for this build to make it work is your Bloodseeker Hellion's Paw. Now, I leave the implicit of 1.6 physical attack damage leeches life on it, but you can use a Val Orb or the Double Corrupt to make it to where you gain power charges. With a claw, you can gain power charges on crit. That means you'll be max power charges. It's only 7%, but you will be max power charges if you use it. And if you double corrupt it, you can have other strong and powerful abilities. You will lose the 1.6 damage life leech, but you can replace that with this. This gets you 0.6, 0.4, and 0.4. It replaces it completely. You don't need it. So you can replace that implicit if you like. Next, it's just going to be good gear. Good overall. It's cheap, pretty cheap. I have a Starconia's head here. The one thing you want if you're going to be tanking metamorphs is the Berserk has 40% reduced rage loss per second. And if you're going to tank the Conquerors, they take a long time, especially Drox, and you want your Berserk up. I'll explain what Berserk does when we go over the links and our armors and our skills. This just lowers the rage loss. You remember the rage that we showed you? Berserk drains your rage really fast. This just lessens it so you can set on someone. And with your double rage gain from the gym and the Berserker node, you can keep your rage up, especially if you're hitting really fast on something and it's consistent. You'll keep your rage up with Berserk even on for a long time, and that will make you extremely tanky, much more damage, much faster, all the whole shebang. This is very cheap to get on a helm. No one likes to use Berserk like this, but I can tell you it is super effective. Starconia's is just for the life, the dex, and all the good stuff, the attack speed. I'm not saying it's the best helm that you might want, but I think it's just a quick, easy helm to get. You'll be able to find Berserk reduced on it easily, so keep that in mind when you're getting a helm. Starconia's is great. For your shield, you want to Lionize Remorse. I don't know anything that's more tanky and better for the build. It just gives so much life, so much armor, and it minuses 25 physical damage from projectiles, which doesn't seem like much, but when you're already, not taking much damage at all, it makes long-range projectiles seem like they do no damage to you. You walk through them and you're like, ooh, that usually hurts me. It doesn't a lot of times with this build, and it just gives an extra block chance. You get around 30 to 34% block on this build with the current, so it's not a bad chunk of block. On your Calm's Roots, Titan Greaves, you're just going to go for the highest life roll you can get, and then I suggest if you're going to enchant them, I don't like running the lab, so you don't see the proper enchant here. The proper enchant you want is if you've taken damage, you regenerate 2% life. If you've taken damage recently, so you'll want that because you get so much life that you're regenerating a lot, and that's just the best one on Calms. You don't need to corrupt it. Usually the corruptions never work out on these. Trust me, they give you +1 to sockets, and it has no sockets. You can switch these out for something else. It will lower your life by quite a chunk, but if you get yourself a really good pair of boots, you can do that. And if you get resist on them, you can try to switch around your rings and stuff. For a belt, there's one mod that I suggest that you try to get on it, and that's you take 30% reduced extra damage from critical strikes. This can roll different. This was a 30% one. You can get them for pretty cheap. This belt was not as good when I first got it. I actually did a Leo mission and the safe house to Exalt and got that 44 fire resist on it. But you can get these pretty good priced, especially if they're lower than the 30% max. This one is just an exceptional one that is crazy good. So just get yourself a belt with resist, life, and reduced critical strike damage taken, and you'll be set up. It's pretty straightforward. For your gloves, I went with World Carver. You can go with any gloves that curses enfeeble on hit if you want the extra damage taken off of the boss. You don't need to exactly run enfeeble. It does lower your damage quite a chunk, but it makes bosses and enemies do nothing to you on a lot of it. It makes a lot of the content even more trivialized because they just cannot hurt you when they're getting another less damage taken. This stacks though. See, this is about 12 to 14% less damage taken. Berserk is going to do 19% when I show you the skill. So overall, you're going to get over 30% less damage taken immediately from bosses. So Drox is one shot. He's going to have to one shot you with 30% less damage. Well, 30 to 35% less damage. It usually does not happen. And since you have the minus crit, less damage taken from crit, and you have that other Pantheon crit skill, he's going to find it. Even a Drox or even someone that hits really hard is going to find it. It's just going to be hard for them to one-shot you. World Carver also adds something that's a little bit cool called Arcane Wake. You'll see it right here. Let me get it going for you. When you spend a certain amount of mana, you get this, and it just makes all your action speed bonus by like 0.10 or whatever. It just, the faster hits, faster everything. Of course, I think I might give it to the boss, but he really, with this build, you're not worrying about the boss. You're not worried about what they're doing. You're only worried about what you're doing. You're hitting them, and you're leeching, and you're setting on them. And it gives armor and all that jazz. Life, accuracy rating if you need more accuracy. And then for the fun of it, the more mods you put on your maps, the more these gloves become effective. The modifiers is what it means on a map is just like when it says 2 unique bosses, that's a modifier. And the other modifiers from certain different things affecting the area. You can use your sextants to even further increase the damage and attack speed on this build with these gloves on. For rings, straightforward. You're going to want life. You're going to want resist. Physical damage is great. I suggest a little bit of mana. Like I said, I take mana nodes to make it more comfortable for me to Cyclone because I have a problem with running out of mana because I'll just spin and not pay attention. Same with the next ring. Look for the resist, life you need, damage. On your amulet, you can use Impressence. It can give you the vulnerability aura. If you don't want to use Enfeeble, it will up your damage a considerable amount. You will gain a lot. That's if you want to up the DPS over using an Enfeeble on hit. You can use the Blasphemy because you have enough sockets. I use a Portal Gem and a few other things that I don't need just for fun and just for my own personal taste. And you can put in a Blasphemy with vulnerability to help you. I allocate Discipline and Training. Let me show you which that is. It's right here. Discipline and Training just adds 30%, 10% to maximum life and 30 to maximum life. So just more life on the build to allow me to tank whatever is going to hit me. And you want one that's got max life and increased maximum life percentage. And like I said, you can get evasion rating on this because it just increases your armor. You can get physical attack damage, that sort of thing, just the same as all the other jewelry. The most expensive item that you'll run across to buy with this, if you don't use a rare 6-link chest with life on it, which you can, and it works fine, you'll be a couple hundred lower life, but you can totally still tank 99% of the game without dying even with a rare chest. Before I got this, I used a rare chest and I tanked everything. But Belly of the Beast just adds a lot of life. The 6th link I got cost me 4 Exalt. I know that's expensive. It's the most expensive item you're going to spend here. Trust me, nothing else is going to come close. If you use a rare chest, you can get this thing to taking. If you get lucky on the trades, you're gonna spend less than 2 Exalt on it, and you're just gonna dominate most of the content. You've seen it in some of my videos. I run tier red maps, stuff like that. So Belly Beast is just extra, and the extra gore, that's fun stuff too. And it'll be going down. Hopefully it'll be going down during closer to the end of the league. Just get the highest rolls you can on it, and then you can Divine Orbit if you want to even. For the flask, I take a hollowed hybrid flask. I know you never see this on anyone, and that's because I'm a goof and I run out of mana because I don't pay attention because I zone out. And this just gives me a chance to refill my mana. Usually never use it for life. You don't usually need to because you're Liege. You use it for mana, and then if you ever do need a little bit of life for degen stuff, use that. I suggest you have stop bleeding on one of your pots or your flask, and I put it on this one with a recovery rate. Then you can go with that Zeri's Promise, or you can go with the Conch Ground one. I go with that Zeri's Promise for the extra leech, the extra chaos damage, that sort of thing. It really shines through with the extra leech you get. And it increases your DPS a little bit, which you need DPS with this kind of build. The next is I go a Diamond Flask of Iron Skin. The reason I go Iron Skin, I'll explain with this here, Lion's Roar. It's the flask that I suggest you have to get. It's so good for the build, more melee damage and stuff like that. The knockback is fun when you Val Cyclone and you push stuff back, or when you want to push stuff around a map to certain locations. You can see that in some of my map videos. But it gives 3,000 to armor. And with this, you get 86% increased armor during flask effect. So these both stack. When you do this, this will get the bonus. So you just hit your 4 pots and boom, you get tons of physical damage reduction. And then for this, the other one, I use Surgeons for the extra physical damage reduction and just kicking back some of the phys damage they do to me. And I put immune to curses on it. You need an immune to curse flask. You can create these in Einhar. I'm getting ready to do a flask video on how to make the flask you want to make to update my old one. But these are all the flasks you need. Any other the mods that you saw there, you can use whatever you want on them. I just take the certain ones. I need the Iron Skin, I need the immune to bleeding, and I need the immune to curses. Nothing else is going to bother you because you're already immune to poison due to your Pantheon. That covers most of that. Now we're going to get into the skills. My skills, some of them are my choice. You might switch it up a little bit. So let's get to the one that matters most, and that's our Cyclone. You'll want to Vow Cyclone, much percentage quality as you can get on it. I like Vow Cyclone because usually with a build, you got to worry when you Vow Cyclone something in. It causes you panic because something could kill you when you're stuck in Vow Cyclone. With a tank build like this, as you've seen in some of my videos, we never worry. Even on metamorphs, we suck them all in, we kill them, we go about our business because this build is made for it. So get yourself a Vow Cyclone. Super satisfying skill, super great for this build to have fun. Next, I use a Pulverize. It just increases our AoE to a bit bigger, so we can have a little more comfortability to us, and adds a good amount of area damage. I use Rage Support, like I told you earlier, to stack a little bit of damage due to the Rage, and the more Rage you got, the more damage you do with even the gym, but it also builds your Rage up for your Berserk, which we'll be getting to soon. Fortify is just for the extra defense and the extra damage. You can see it adds a nice chunk of damage, but the defense that it adds to this build is just great, and you're going to always have it on when you're whirling around, and it just adds more tank. Melee physical damage, self-explanatory, just more damage. And then Infused Channeling. I know it looks weird to take Infused Channeling over something that, like Brutality or something. Brutality takes away your ability to use Elemental, and it is an option. You can use Purity, Herald of Purity with it to not kill your you wouldn't need to use any elemental, so it wouldn't affect it. But the reason we run this is it adds a good amount of damage, 39% more, and then it adds physical damage reduction. I know it seems weird, but while channeling a supported skill, take 8% less damage from hits of types matching the skill gem's tags. So, Cyclone, attack, AoE, duration, melee, movement, you see those up there? Those all tell us what we're going to get 8% of that damage taken, helped by infused channeling. 8% less damage from AoE skills that they throw at you, from melee skills or channeling or physical. So it just adds more defense while adding damage while you're cycloning. That's why we never stop cycloning on a boss, because we want this extra less damage taken, and that's further less damage added to your berserk and your enfeeble. Next, we'll just go with our cast when damage taken. When I use in it, I am not good with cast when damage taken. I know it can be modified to be better. I keep mine at level 2, and then I take Molten Shell and Blood Rage. I know some people use Val Molten Shell, but you don't need to. Trust me, you don't need to. It's going to proc, going to give you a ton of armor because you've got a ton of armor, and then Blood Rage is going to proc, and you're leeching so much that you never notice the degen. Even with your Rage on, you get your Frenzy charges, you're doing good. Next, we'll get into our Ancestral War Chief and our Whirling Blades. I sock them both together here because on my Ancestral War Chief, I don't use it for damage. You can. I use it for a little bit more defense. And I put in a faster attacks. That helps Whirling Blades go faster and it hit faster. And then I put in Blind, because it will blind whatever it's hitting. And when you stick that on a boss and it's hitting extremely fast, or any of the mobs, it blinds them really well. So since it's AoE, it also blinds whole groups and helps with defense. More defense. You notice a pattern. I use a portal gem. You don't have to. It's just personal preference to have fun with not having portal scrolls. I run Herald of Ash. You can run Herald of Purity if you take something like Brutality to eke out a little more damage. And this just adds, you don't need the explosion stuff. That doesn't really matter. It just adds more damage. Physical, gain 50% of your physical damage is extra fire damage. You can use any one you want. It doesn't matter. I just use it for the extra physical for the leech. From like this Aziri's Promise, elemental damage as extra chaos damage. It just adds more leech over the elemental. Then Rallying Cry. This, you can take any war cry you want. This is just my personal preference. I took a war cry only. You don't even have to take one. I took a war cry only to taunt enemies if I'm tanking for someone. You can take this out and add a separate gem in. You can take it out and make your War Chief a 4-link and put your Whirling Blades down here. That kind of thing. Do whatever you like on that. It's going to work out fine for you even without a taunt, because nothing's going to really kill you. And if you're soloing, you don't have to worry anyways. So next, we're saving Berserk for last because it's so linchpin. Flesh and Stone, I run this, and I run it with Blood and Sand, and I run them in both their blood modes. So you don't need to run them in this. I know it can add defense, but you don't need defense at this point. You're doing fine, and projectiles hardly ever affect you. You don't get killed. I know those exploding thorn beasts can cause some trouble for some people. They don't for you. You wade through the hordes of them. They do not bother you. Just be leeching. Run right into them. Don't go ooh and scare away. Run into them. I'm going to explain some ways to play this build after this that you have to remember. Then I run Precision for the extra accuracy and the extra crit. It's just makes the game a little more comfortable with hitting, and a little extra damage from crit. I just like the skill. You could probably replace that if you put certain jewels in to your passive tree. And then Berserk. This is the skill that is so linchpin for tanking everything you see me tank, and for the sustained from the helmet, the 40% reduced rage loss, the build of the rage support. It all comes down to Berserk. Now let's read Berserk real quick, because it is a massive skill that is underutilized. Consumes rage at an accelerating rate to provide a powerful buff, granting more attack damage, attack speed, movement speed, and less damage taken. Lose 5 rage per second. Now see, that's why we have that lowered rage. This now only loses 3 rage per second due to our helm, and we gain back rage every 0.3, 0.4 seconds. We're gaining 2 rage. 20% more damage with attacks. Huge damage bump. 20% more attack speed. That with your blitz charges is 60% more attack speed. You're hitting so fast, leeching so quick, and you're proccing that leech a lot. Just really amazing for filling your life back up. A big hit will hit you, and all of a sudden you'll be full. Sometimes imperceptible to the human eye. It's just immediate. 30% more movement speed. If you're going through maps and you've got built up 50 rage, you can hit this and you will burn through stuff. Like, just run, because it increases attack speed, and the more damage just makes your cyclone vicious. So you'll go through normals and you can go really fast. And then 19% less damage taken. Here's the big one. 19% less damage taken is huge. This means less damage, all of it. Okay, so anything they're going to be hitting you with, 19% less immediately. You could round that up to a nice 20%er. So let's just say immediately when you face a boss, they're doing 20% less damage to you if you're on rage. That means that, you know, like, well, he hits me in one hit. Well, now he's going to, like I said earlier, he's going to have to hit you with 80% of his attack. If Enfeeble's on, another 10 or more. And then Infused Channeling, less damage taken. If it's a melee hit, he's going to have another 8% less damage taken from those types. So you can see you're nearly getting 30 to 40, but you're getting around 40% less damage taken from melee strikes from a boss. So immediately you're just really hard to kill. Just say that. Overall, the build has been a joy to play. It takes a long time to kill Conquerors because they have so much, especially Drox. I fought Drox, face tanking him, not dying, for 12 minutes because of his dang banners. I swirling around, hitting him, all that, and casting my War Chief in between. That's why I say maybe you want to up the damage, and you can up the damage. It'll cost you a little life, but right now, like I said, 99% of stuff cannot kill you. I only know one thing in this game that can one-shot me right now, and I'm not sure how. I think it's a different kind of damage. It can't when I have Berserk up and I have this belt on. But without that, it can, and that's a metamorph that has Malachi in a tier 14 or 15 or whatever map with Malachi. He does a big slam with his staff in the metamorph form. This does massive damage. Luckily, you can dodge it very easily, or if you figure out what it is doing, what kind of damage it is doing, you could probably modify this just to take it. I take the shot a lot, but it's a crit that'll get you. It has a high chance of crit or something, I don't know. But a lot of times it won't hurt you at all, but he gets that in sometimes and it'll kill you. Other than that, the only thing else you might worry about is Drox's massive physical damage drop. If you're not in Berserk mode, you have to be in Berserk mode on him, and make sure that when it drops on you, you have that Berserk up. And if you want, you can make it do nothing by potting. So save your pots on Drox for when you need to defend against that if you're scared of it. Me, I just set on him with Berserk on, and it never really bothers me, but it can scare you. Now, let's go over some of the strategies for this real quick so I can not push you out there and you not knowing what to do. With this build, it's going to seem weird to play in the beginning. I've showed you it can clear maps pretty well. Normal bosses, you'll do fine. But you cannot run. This is not made for running. It's not made for running away. You have to get to them. You have to cyclone on them. And you stay on them. The moment you come off of them and you stop cycloning and stop leeching, you're vulnerable. I know it seems weird when you see something like Drox dropping a big hit like that. It makes you want to run. Or when you see some boss or metamorph dropping something heavy on you, makes you want to run and get away from it. Don't. You're going to die more if you run. You want to set on them. You want to spin on them, and you want to leech on them. And if you're at all scared, just save your pot here, your basalt. It's not for damage. It's only for defense. And when they're going to drop something, you click it. It'll take your physical. It takes the physical and negates a bunch of it, and you'll be fine. You'll be safe. Or you can hit all three for a big boost. This build is different than what most people play, in my opinion. I've played a lot of different builds of my own, and this is it's a strange build to learn. It's to fight the urge to run from certain different things, but you don't even run. Trust me, don't run. In Delve, it's the same way. In Delve, you're going to just keep burning through them. I know some people try to hit them from afar. I've used this build last league before it was as powerful as it is right now. It's much more powerful. And even at 200 depth in Delve, they do not kill you as long as you're hitting them. That's as far as I've been in Delve. I'm at 100 and some Delve right now. They're not doing nothing. They're not going to hurt you. You sit in there and you spin and say this is the cart right here, and they're going to spawn all that stuff around you. You can spawn whatever you want. Even if you have monsters on you, and just spawn a strongbox. It doesn't matter as long as you're hitting and tanking. Make sure you're leeching. Just come over to strongbox, boom, open it up, then start going again. You're going to get used to it as you play it, what you can tank with it, which is pretty much anything. It's 99% of the game is not going to hurt you. Just fight the urge to run away from it, stay on it and hurt it. Leech off of it. I do not know if I missed anything here. I hope that all of this has explained a little bit about the build. I don't think that you'll have a problem at all once you build it, other than your mana. Remember, you want those mana, that little bit of mana for comfortability. I can't stress that enough. You will not like it if you can't spin around as much. So, and I know, oh, well, I could use those points. You don't need to use those points for anything else. You will be fine. Trust me. Just play it. Having fun with it. I know some of the bosses, like metamorph bosses, can take minutes. But it's the fun of thinking, oh, will it one-shot me? And that's only very, very monstrous life leech, life regen metamorphs. Excuse me, I had to take a little sip. So I hope you enjoyed all of this. I hope that if any of you use the build, maybe you modify it to be even better. Maybe you take off a little bit of the tank, because right now it's tanking everything. I even tank Veritania and her snowstorm. I just set on her, and her snowstorm does not hurt me. Tier 4 Veritania, I set in her snowstorm with her blasting me with her elemental damage, and I leeched through it all. Just set on her and killed her. She takes a little while. So yeah, I'm hoping that some of y'all enjoy this build. I'm about to switch it up to a new build soon, maybe, because I've pretty much done whatever I need to do with this. Cirrus is not the one I want now. His fight is more do this, then go wait, do this, then go wait. It's not. It's like it's Zeri. You learn it. You can do it with a much lower damage as long as you're good at dodging things. So it's a dodge when I wanted to face tank, and so screw Cirrus. I face tanks Drox and the others, and Cirrus is just not on my list of things that I wanted to do with this build now that I found out he's one of those fights where you have to use skill. Because this is not a skill build. This is a run in and hurt things build. I don't want to have to go over out of a storm and wait while Cirrus does his crap and talks, you know. So I will probably be switching this up since I've done everything to prove a concept of chain hook. I played it last league, but then I wasn't as good at building last league. This build and some of the help that I got last league with the chain hook kind of upped my skill in building, and I'm going to make a chain hooker, and we're going to see just how extreme chain hook can get. That's if I make it. I'm thinking on it, just say that. But people tell me it sucks, so I want to create it. So look forward to that too. I'll do a build video of that if you guys want to see that. If I do it and I show off how fast it is. And I hope you enjoy the build. I really do. It was fun to create. It was fun to theory craft with everybody that has helped me. I want to thank my brother and everybody else who helped me out on this. And enjoy. And as always, if I missed something, please in the comments below tell me. I will come back to it and I will explain it. And if you want any strategies, I'll explain those too. Take care, be safe, and be cool to each other.